Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Lion, the Way, and the War, where we discuss Jesus, his church, and the spiritual battle that surrounds us all. My name is Craig Allison.
My name's Brandon Bonner,
And we'll be your host. So we've had a series going. We're talking about just different social issues, and some of the topics we've talked about have been kind of triggering. Can I use that word? I mean, they haven't been the easy. That's a better word. Yeah, they have been some sensitive topics there, and I'm just trying to approach all of these topics with some sensitivity and awareness, and I hope we haven't offended anybody listening. So that is going to be applicable to today's episode too. We're talking about church hurt. Talking about being triggered. That phrase just flies.
Triggered a lot of people.
It flies all over me, and I've got my own personal reasons for that. We were talking before the episode. We were actually getting into some of this. We should have been recording.
And we probably forgot it all, and it's not going to come out.
Yeah. So let's try to recreate that then. I guess I'll just ask you off the top, like, what does that mean to you, church hurt?
Well, I think a lot of the discussions we're having is, church is an environment that you come into, and there's some certain kind of parameters and expectations. Safety is maybe a word for it. Like you kind of know what you're going into.
Yeah. And
so in those environments, just like you are with your family, right? Or like when we go back to, I shouldn't have said that, the compound, like we let our guard down because we've known each other for a long time. We're all close. And so I think church is another place that people can do that and should feel comfortable to do that. So when you let your guard down, you're obviously more exposed and vulnerable.
Right.
And I think that there's instances where, people have let their guard down and there's been people in the church that have, acted a certain way, done a certain thing, said whatever it might be, and has really rubbed people the wrong way and hurt people.
Yeah. Okay. So as you're talking here, and something that didn't occur to me while we were talking before the episode, there's like different levels. We're talking about this is entry level church hurt.
Yes.
Where it's not purposeful. There's no like evil intention behind it.
Right.
And like I've had people come in, and I've said things offhanded that I wasn't even thinking about, and didn't even realize that I'd hurt somebody in it. It may have hurt them way worse than what I ever would have dreamed of. And that happens. I wish it didn't. People are human. We're flawed. And so I think the frustrating thing for me, and this is going to sound super, super harsh, but the frustrating thing for me is what we're talking about right here, this entry-level church hurt, encompasses probably 95% of all like church hurt, where people literally leave. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, are we that sensitive? The word I want to use is just like weak and incapable of understanding that just because you go to a church doesn't mean that it's going to be a perfect, safe setting. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've what I hear a lot of times for people that don't want to come to church, they're like, well, y'all are just a bunch of hypocrites. Well, and I'm like, yeah, we are, because we're human. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't be there, because church is a place for people to go and get better, to work on their issues, to work on problems. So the expectation there should be that, there's a likelihood that if you go long enough, somebody along the line somewhere is going to say something that is going to offend you, that is going to hurt you, that is going to hurt your feelings, that is going to be insensitive, that is whatever. And this is going to, I shouldn't think so much about what I'm about to say. I should just say it. Because this is gonna make you mad, probably.
Okay, let's hear it.
This is not an opinion either. This is rooted in like many, many years of observation.
Okay.
And it's not necessarily your fault. It's just the society you've been raised in.
doing a great job of prepping this up.
And it's going to sound like generational bias.
Okay, let's hear it. Spit it out.
It is like the older generations are, and maybe they're just more callous and they just don't care. But this never used to be like a big issue. It's like it was expected. It's like, yeah, we're all a bunch of heathens, and we're all sinful, and we're always going to say something that's going to make another person mad. And next week we're going to come back in and do it again.
Yep.
And we're going to be okay with it. Like you look at somebody wrong today, like a younger person. And man, you're going to be blasted all over their Instagram, social media. You're not going to believe what happened. I can't believe how I was victimized. And I'm like, why? Like what happened over the last 30 years that made, here again, I'm going to lump a whole generation into this. Like basically if you're 35 or younger, you're like a little sensitive kid that is just looking for something to get angry about.
So some thoughts.
Some
obvious
I need to think about who else I need to offend here. And you older people that are baby boomers, let me just offend you too.
So some obvious thoughts. Well, first off, I think that my generation, and I think the millennial generation as well, seek out people that are genuine.
Are you are millennial?
No, Gen Z.
Okay.
Right on I'm right there at the edge, but I'm a Gen Zer. So my generation, I think the millennial generation really seek genuineness. Okay. And I think that your generation and the generations that precede you, they put a front up, right? Like there's this expectation to be polished and have certain parameters and certain lifestyles and appear certain ways and all the things.
Meet the expectations.
Yep.
I agree with that.
And so I think when someone comes in looking for a genuine experience and you put on a front and maybe we're fooled.
Well, I don't put on any fronts anymore.
But like,
I'm out there for everybody.
Like someone puts on a front that's in a position that's a preacher or an elder or a deacon or some sort of, not authoritative, but it has a lot of influence.
Yeah.
And then their layers start to be peeled back, and it's revealed that they maybe don't have the best intentions, or maybe have the best intentions, but just aren't there yet, and they're missing the mark. I think that's where you start to create a lot of issues with my generation and the millennial generation.
So what and I the older generations, we all understand that that's how we are, and it's like you put your best foot forward, and you suck it up and you come to church, and even if you've had the most miserable week, you're going to act like it's the greatest thing ever, and oh hey, how are you, that kind of stuff. Right. But we all understand that that's not actually what's real, and so we're able to be like, yeah, that's there's grace there. You acted like everything's fine. I know what's going on with you. I know that's not true, and we're not going to be like, you're such a hypocrite and liar. I can't believe you. Well, and so where's the grace? And where, like, why is your all's generation so apt to be like, I've been so hurt by that because of your hypocrisy. Like how did that? I'm like, how did that happen? And I mean, it's probably our fault, honestly, because we raised y'all. Like, what is it that we did or society did to make y'all be like, we expect complete and total genuineness, and if you're not that way, we're going to discount you, even though we're not exactly genuine either when push comes to shove?
I don't know. I don't know what the root cause. I haven't done a root cause analysis on that or a lot of study on generations, but I personally feel like honesty goes a long way with me personally, and so we've had discussions, and we've talked about things that we both struggle with, and so I don't know, I'm more comfortable with that. You know what I mean? I understand that you're going to miss the mark, and I'm going to miss the mark because Romans 3:23, everyone's going to miss the mark. But I think the danger is, being in those positions of authority and pretending like you're never going to miss the mark, putting up that front, and then you're human, so you are going to miss the mark.
Yeah, and I get that part. I hope you probably know, but the listeners don't know that I'm kind of playing heavy on the devil's advocate piece of this.
And I think that we have to, and this is another thing, and you have a point here about authority, leadership,
right?
And so we think about church structure, right? The shepherds of the flock,
right?
Man, it is important for us to be careful who we install as shepherds and elders of our church. And so maybe that's another component. Like think about successful society. We've talked about this before. Mm-hmm. Like who would be a successful elder? Yeah. Businessman, financially responsible, well-dressed, good speaker, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. And those could be, yes, the good qualities of an elder. However, there's a whole load of qualities that we're discounting, because when you look at the scriptures on this, there's a lot of like servant verbiage and language, humble, humility, meek. I mean, this is the things that you would also want to see, or actually what scripture commands that you should see in an elder. So maybe it's not always the successful businessman, which I'm not saying that like our elders are, they're not all successful businessmen, but I'm just saying like that is I think stereotypical. Someone comes in very successful, well-dressed, good speaker. What's our immediate thought? Hey, I think they should be an
let's
elder.
Make them an elder, right?
Let's put them in leadership.
Yeah.
And so I think that's another thing as a church. Like, how are we? Like, what are our church leaders? Who are we installing as church leaders? And for church leaders, how are they holding themselves accountable? Like, are they looking at what the scriptures command of them to be shepherds of the flock, and they really understand what that means before they accept a position like being an elder?
Yeah. Okay. So a couple things. First of all, I think the takeaway, the first piece that we were talking about, and I was being very aggressive with the generational stuff. Is there is some truth to some of that. That entry level church hurt that we're naturally just set up for, especially the younger generation, because they've been conditioned to look for identity through victimization, and I've written about that. That's when I ask you why that is. That's the reason. That's the psychological process, and that's the fault of multiple things going on simultaneously. Our news cycles, our social media. You see a vast change in the way your generation and the generations younger than you begin to process information and think. Guess when? The applications of social media, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Okay. And that's all very evidential, empirical stuff that's been now long-standing studies done on it. Okay. So there's that a generation set up to be, what's the word? Vulnerable is part of it, but kind of defenseless. Like you don't have the armor to be able to process and deal with that. Okay. So you're set up to be church herded through basically a normal situation that's going to occur in every church. And so you get these younger folks jumping around to different church after church after church, and guess what they're experiencing? The same thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Because they're walking into people and they're seeing that disingenuousness and whatever. Okay. So entry level church hurt. Takeaway on that is basically part of it is just this, understanding why that's happening, and that we need to be responsive to that we need to do a better job as churches explaining, hey, we shouldn't act like we've got everything together, that we're perfect, because we're not. We're all in this together, coming in, trying to be better. Are there hypocrites here? Yes, pretty much everybody is. We try to present a front like you got on a date. Are you being a hypocrite when you put your best foot forward?
No.
Okay. So it's the same thing. It's just it's taking older generations taking the time to explain that to the younger generations and being like, okay, so let's work on this together and understand this. That's going to, I think, prevent a lot of people from just church hopping and trying to find that, that perfect church.
Right. Well, and I think we build our foundation, like our faith foundations. I think our cornerstone piece is on wrong things.
Yep.
Um,
And also, that's not indicative of who's behind the church. It is Jesus. I mean, that is, he established the church, and we are his bride.
Mhm.
And just because you come into a church and you don't find, perfection doesn't mean that the ultimate authority in that is perfect, because he is. Now, you brought up leadership. Okay, so I think we're going now to a second level of church hurt and setting people up for victimization. And you said it's super important who we select to put into that, because the consequences of putting the wrong person into a leadership position can be absolutely devastating.
Yep.
So, here's the sad truth. There are certain positions that attract people that have nefarious, malevolent intentions. And church leadership, unfortunately, is one of the things that attract bad players. People that abuse children, they're looking for jobs where they have access to children. Okay. And so this power structure that exists in churches is very attractive to people who can put themselves in or get into positions of leadership and then do bad stuff. So what do you do with that?
what do we do with that?
Yeah, I mean, what is the safeguards there? What do we need? How do we need to be looking at that and processing that?
Well, I mean, I think there's tons of scripture, and we've done this study a lot here at Central on what shepherds look like, what elders look like, and I think that, again, as I mentioned before and alluded to a little bit earlier, is what kind of leaders are we putting into these positions? What are their intentions? Or what kind of personalities are one thing, but it's really not even that. It's just like, what are their motivations? Mm-hmm. Like, why do they want to be in this position? Because let's be honest, like the elder position is one that's not, I mean, it's extremely difficult.
Right.
You don't, I think if you really understood an elder position, like it is not one that, it's one that takes a lot of thought and prayer, and, then you come to the conclusion that I'm willing to serve in this capacity to the Lord.
Yeah. I think one of the indicators that everybody needs to be aware of is that if you have leadership that have a problem being questioned, they demand absolute loyalty, that you better not question their authority. Those should be red flags, because again, the scripture points to the leadership having characteristic traits that are humble, long-suffering, they are discerning in nature. These are not the people that are going to snap back at you if you say, "Hey, why are we doing that?"
Yep.
They're going to say, "I'm glad you asked that. Let's talk about that." Guiding, shepherding. Yep. That's the qualities there that you're looking for. And so where this leads to really dangerous grounds is, and it's not just like your shepherds, your elders, or your deacons. It's also your preachers, your ministers, where you can develop like this cult of personality, where people begin to follow the personality rather than the message.
Yep.
And that goes, that messes with the person's head. So even if they're not intentionally like working into positions of power and authority, their positions can naturally lend them to getting that, that ego.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that the biblical church structure is in place for a reason. It is designed not to have a single head, a single authoritative person for a reason, right? It's a group of individuals, shepherds, elders, plural, that are shepherding a church. And I think there's a reason for that. There's not a head elder or head pastor or et cetera.
And, we also talk about correction. Nobody's above authority, being corrected. It doesn't matter who you are. And I unfortunately have been in situations where an elder did not believe that he should be corrected by anybody. And that's a really dangerous person to have in a position of authority.
Yep.
And you get into those, so that's, tricky situation there, because how do we are to be under our eldership and respect that authority, but at the same time, if they're out of line and they're abusing that authority, that has to be addressed, because that's a cancer within a congregation. It can destroy it. And Satan understands that, and he naturally goes after those people in authority to create those type of issues, which obviously leads to that you got that entry level church hurt. This gets into some more of like serious trauma based issues that are much more long term and devastating to people. And I've seen that this second level actually take a person from a place of faith to a place of atheism, because it's that devastating.
Yep.
So we absolutely have to be careful about that. So I'm thinking too then about the context of this. We are given guidance in Matthew chapter 18 on how to reconcile. If somebody sins against you, what we're supposed to be doing.
Yep.
Do you want to walk through that, or do you feel comfortable walking through that?
Matthew 18, we can read it.
Yeah.
1 second. Put me on the spot.
Yeah, it's okay. 15 through 17.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think this is a good passage. We get caught up on this a lot, I think, especially when I was at the student center. Like, this is healthy conflict resolution.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think maybe you taught a class on this, conflict resolution. Yeah. Okay, Matthew 18, 15 through 17. If your brother sins against you, go and tell him his fault, between you and him alone. If he listens to you, you have gained your brother. But if he does not listen, take 1 or 2 others along with you, that every charge may be established by the evidence of 2 or 3 witnesses. If he refuses to listen to them, tell it to the church. And if he refuses to listen even to the church, let him be to you as a Gentile and a tax collector.
Yeah, so that's hard to do.
Yeah.
Because that's so uncomfortable, we don't do that. But that's what Scripture teaches us to do. So I'm kind of curious then why we don't do that when we have this type of conflict.
So I think this is also a generational thing. My general conflict avoidance, not exclusively in my generation, but like that is maybe a common theme. Like there's a general conflict avoidance, and I think a lot of that is rooted in how do you engage in conflict virtually, text message, social media. It's completely different to engage in conflict face to face,
right?
And so I think a lot of times the thought process, and maybe this isn't just my generation thing, maybe it's just a general like population society shift, but if there's a conflict, it is easier for me to leave the church and go to a church 2 blocks down the road and worship with another congregation, because I don't even want to engage in that conflict with you.
Yeah, and the situation never gets resolved.
Right. And the person may never even know that they did something wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, unnecessary severs of relationships and families, the church family, for something that someone may have no idea what they've done.
Yeah. So I think one of the key takeaways here is that church leaders need to understand this particular avarice or aversion for the younger generations to avoid conflict at all cost. And we, as church leaders, we need to get comfortable talking about this.
Right.
Talking about it to younger people, saying, this is what Scripture teaches. We want to make sure you understand, like, our door is open. And it is absolutely necessary that if you have been hurt or wounded, or, that you understand that this is, and here again, I know you hate it when I use this word. I mean, it really is a safe space. And while it may not be the perfect safe space, this is how we move that needle for the younger generations to creating a place where they actually do feel like they can get some resolution on this stuff.
Yeah. Well, and I'm going to go back to what we've talked about, kind of a common theme through a lot of these things, and it's relationships. Mm-hmm. So you and I have a relationship. We've known each other for many years. And so if we had a disagreement, I'm coming to you. We're going to talk about it. And I hate conflict. You know this.
Yeah.
I mean, it's something I've been working on for years. Like I do not do conflict well.
Right. And I purposely try to set up conflict for you.
I do believe that. You and your entire family. And so I think I think the relationships will prevail, because it would be extremely difficult for me to sever relationships with you, or or some of the people that we live on the compound with.
At some point, I think we're going to have to talk about the compound.
Yeah, but all the people that we
our cult
communion with a lot. It would be difficult, right? And we've talked about this before. And so I think relationships are important, especially, and this is something, kudos to our church leadership here at Central, because there has been other church leaderships that haven't done this as well, but they're very relational. I know them. I'm not intimidated to talk to them. I feel like the congregation knows our elders and who they are and what they're about very well. And I think that creates environments for things like this to move forward, because I don't doubt there's been people in their offices that have disagreements and questions and pushback. I know you've had discussions and pushback. And so, I mean, all those things are good, healthy dialogue, ways to grow as a church. But I think it starts with identifying, with building those relationships.
Yeah, I'm very passionate about this topic particularly. I'm okay with people leaving this church if they're looking for a better children's program, or if they're looking for a place that has like more people their age, that they fit that demographic, whatever, or that they're looking for like maybe a more dynamic preacher or something, or more diverse Bible classes or whatever. Like any of those reasons, I really honestly don't have a problem with that, and I hate to lose anybody. What I lose sleep over, what I absolutely cannot tolerate, is somebody leaving because they have been offended or they have been hurt, especially if it's in a church that has done the stuff that I'm talking about and are creating those, because that is going to happen. And I've seen the people that tend to get church hurt more than most, I see them moving from church to church to church, because they continue to get hurt because they've never learned, hey, this is going to happen. Somebody eventually is going to say something that's going to offend me, and I need to stop and just deal with this. And hopefully you land at a church like Central who's set up to really embrace that and own our faults and take the time to work through and reconcile.
Yep.
So as we close out, then I want to just the few takeaways here, the practical advice that I've come up with that helps us navigate through all this. Number one, follow leaders who welcome accountability. Really, really important. That's getting back to if you have an elder who does not like to be questioned at all, that's a red flag. You should be able to ask your questions without fear. As a campus minister, that was a big thing for me. It's like, I'm not afraid of the questions, and you shouldn't be afraid to ask me those questions. We're going to sit down and work through them. Look for humility before popularity. You brought that up, which is a huge one. Protect vulnerable and take allegations seriously. We didn't get into there's a level 3.
Sure.
And that's probably should be dedicated to a whole nother episode. I don't know how applicable that is. That's definitely in my wheelhouse, but we're getting into like neglect, sexual abuse kind of stuff,
sure,
and some real legal issues that maybe would be better formatted for like a question answer type of session. Keep scripture, not personalities, and as the final authority. So those are some key takeaways. I think that if you go to a church, or if you're a church leader listening to this, those I think will be things that should be considered. Final thoughts?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think church leadership, if you're listening to this, make sure to be in the flock, right? Like build the relationships. And if you attend your congregation, make sure to make an effort to get to know your church leadership. I mean, they're people too. Yeah. And I think sometimes we forget that. So hopefully this was insightful, encouraging, challenging. If it wasn't, let us know. If it was, let us know. We're on all the major streaming platforms: YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Big shout out to our sponsors. We have this nice studio here at Central Church of Christ on Vine Street. Encourage you to join us on Sunday mornings. We also have a podcast after Sunday
Digging Deeper.
Digging Deeper, and it releases every Monday or Tuesday. Good recap of the Sunday morning sermon here at Central Ministry League is another one of our sponsors. Check out their app. There's some really good podcasts and resources, devotionals on there that can help you in your walk with Christ.
Yeah. Have you heard anything from Flaming Rooster?
Nothing from Flaming Rooster.
Okay, well, they're no longer our sponsor, so there's that. Until our next episode of The Lion, the Way, and the War, be kind to one another, love one another, and remember the Creator of the universe loves you so much that he gave up his only son for you. Have a blessed day. Felt like an auctioneer there.